Buenas tardes a todos, es un placer para mí estar aquí hoy. Soy Rosa Bañó, productora de aceite de oliva virgen extra Castillo de Canena, Jaén, por supuesto. Hello to everybody, I'm very pleased to be today here. I'm extra virgin olive oil producer from Jaén, Castillo de Canena, and I am so extremely delighted because I got three main friends today on the round table. I'm going to do a brief introduction of the three of them. I would like you to share with me all the talent and knowledge behind these three people. But at the same time, I'm going to share with you the questions and the topics that we have sent to them in order to have all these vibration after the brilliant presentation we had before, and to see how they have been answering to all those topics and questions from this side of the country they come from, United States, Germany, and also Japan. Because of the pandemic, we are not going to have the pleasure to have Mr. Tada-san today with us, but he is going to be joining by Zoom. The technology is helping us a lot, and he's going to share with us all the talent and knowledge coming from there. Well, I'm going to start presenting, introducing you from the very beginning, Mr. Tada. Afterwards, I'm going to introduce you, Ralph. At the end, my best friend, Joy, from the United States, right? I need my glasses, sorry. So, Mr. Tada-san, Toshiba Tada, is a master of oil sommelier, senior taste and olive oil senior panel leader. He is a regular olive oil judge at the Sudoshan Japan Municipal Olive Oil Competition, the Australian International Olive Award, and the judge on Israel at Terra Olivo. Since 2012, he has organized and been general director of annual convention and olive oil competition named Olive Japan. Toshiba is a founder and chief professor at the Olive Oil Sommelier School of Japan, which started in Tokyo in 2005. He researched and wrote over 18 hours of course curriculum and the thorough of 1,200 pages textbooks. Those cover the history of olives and the olive oil production, olive culture, culinary uses, health benefits, and sensory skill. He is guest professor in the Fukuoka University and commentator and best-selling Look author and writer of Monthly Magazine. He's also trained traditional tea master with decades of study in the art of appreciation of tea. Toshiba speaks English, German, Latin, and Japanese. My friend Ralph Bender is senior editor of Lebensmittel Zeitung, the leading B2B publication for the food industry and trade in Germany. Lebensmittel Zeitung is part of the DFV Media Group. Born in 1963, I never thought that. Since I saw that, I was, well, you put it in your bio. It's the rural area of Rhineland-Pfalz, not far from the French border. Ralph Bender studied history and journalism at Justus Liebig University in Gießen and Universidad Complutense in Madrid, followed by the graduation of Magister Artium in 1993. Since 1994, Ralph Bender works for the international desk of Lebensmittel Zeitung. In this time, he has specialized on food and beverage producers in Mediterranean countries like Spain and Italy, plus the Americas and Asia, conducting more than 4,000 interviews up to now. And at least, Mr. Joe Profaci. Joseph Profaci has served as executive director of the North American Olive Oil Association since October 2017. He's an experienced food products attorney and business manager with 25 years of experience in the olive oil category. Prior to joining North American Olive Oil Association, he served as General Counsel of Colavita USA, a leading importer and distributor of Italian specialty food products. While with Colavita USA, Mr. Profaci was an active member of the North American Olive Oil Association, including serving as the organization chair from June 2015 to June 2017. Mr. Profaci is graduated on Harvard College and New York University School of Law. Well, after that, I'm going to tell you brief questions that we have been sharing with our guests today here. First of all, we told them and we asked them to do a brief presentation of their own country fears of the extra virgin olive oil market, the way they see it and the trends. We also talk about the future, how the COVID is affecting, if the healthy part has been enhanced by the pandemic. And also we put there the relationship with the youth and the future. They are going to do a brief presentation of those topics, and afterwards we're going to start with the debate, like 25 minutes, where anytime you can ask for questions or just give your own answer. So first of all, Mr. Tada, I don't know if he's around. Tada-san. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Hello, Mr. Tada.
How are you?
Okay. So, buenas tardes. I would like to thank first the organizations of this wonderful event here, because after 2 days I'm still overwhelmed by the presentation that I heard here, and it's really, really impressive. As you have heard the structure by Rosa already, I would like to focus on just on 5 points, 5 questions in a nutshell. So, nope. Parece que no veo. ¿Ahora sí? ¿No funciona? ¿No? ¿Tiene otro? ¿Es el único? ¿El banco se puede cambiar? Sí. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'd like to focus on 5 questions in a nutshell. Why are we talking about Germany at all? What are the criteria why consumers are choosing a olive oil? And number 3, what is the effect of Corona? What is done in communication? And finally, what can be done to rise consumption? Here you can see the German olive oil market. If we just look at the consumption per capita, it's way below many, many other countries in Europe. It's just 0.8 liters per capita, which is quite embarrassing comparing to Greece or Italy or Spain. It's slowly rising. But if you look at the value that you cannot see here very much, but it's here number 6, ranks Germany already. So just it's the 6th important market in turnover for olive oil import. This is close to 400 million euro. According to one of the latest Nielsen consumer tracks, we have more than 2,600 edible oils. I can stand here. So there are more than 2,600 SKUs in the shelf of edible oils. Over 1,700 of these SKUs are olive oils. So the consumer is quite overwhelmed by the amount of oils he finds on the shelf, and he is very disorientated when he has to choose. The way the consumer decides is quite the same, I think, in many countries. So first comes the price. He is looking at the origin, if he finds any on the bottle, on organic seals, as we have heard in previous presentations. Then test results is very crucial, and also quality indication like extra virgin that he knows a little bit the concept about, but doesn't really know more about what it means, and of course the bottle design and the labels. More interesting, I think, what the consumer doesn't have in top of mind, which are these points. He doesn't look for the taste profile, he doesn't look for the year of harvest, the bottling date, or the best before, or the variety. All information that could be put on the bottle, but in most cases aren't there. And as a result of that limited knowledge, he depends very much on his choice on test results. And I would just like to present one test institution in Germany, which is called Stiftung Warentest. You know them perfectly. It's a consumer organization founded 50 years ago, and it's an independent institution for making tests for all kinds of products. Whenever a test comes out, which is usually every year in October, the test comes to the front page. That shows how important for the publishing house is to have this test on their front page, because for consumer it's very, very important. And as a consequence, many, many daily newspapers, they cover these stories, they multiply it, so you can be sure that these test results find the way to the consumers. As an effect of the results, well, there are several effects. One effect is whenever a producer has a label saying good on the bottle, the consumption, the buying purchases, they rise by at least 15%, sometimes it triples, but it's a huge effect on the sales of this olive oil. And another effect, if the mark is bad, you can be sure that the producer gets a phone call by the importer or by the retailer asking what happened with your oil. So this pressure on the production resulted in the last years on a slightly improvement of the quality of the oils in the market, which is quite remarkable, I would say. So if you look at the 2017 results, there were no good oil. In 2019, you had 9, and this year in October, you had 15 oils with a mark good. So it looks like the quality is getting better and better. Now, then came Corona. Last year, after many years of quite a stable consumption in the market, we have a rise of 13 million liters, which is quite a lot, from 45 to 58 million liters, which is 26 million half-liter bottles that went into the households. And this, I think, was a huge opportunity for the producers to start communication. If there weren't the other chart on the other side, where you can see the light-colored, which is a private label, the dark is the leading brand. You might know who it is. It's a Spanish company with Spanish labels, so Spanish companies with Italian labels, and all the rest, divided by 1,700 SKUs. So, this is quite new. In October, so just 2 months ago, the largest communication activity for olive oil in Germany started, run by the Interprofesional del Aceite de Oliva from Spain with European money, founded with 3.5 million euros, 70% coming from the European community, and running now for 3 years. Maybe a bit late, but anyway, there is some communication done here. What you can see here are the main activities. You see here the text of their press release, what they're planning to do. Website, social media, influencer activities, life events, subways, commuter trains, and most outside activities, while people are inside. Before that, coming to Spain, I was talking with some educators and people in the business, in olive oil business, producers, marketers, and asking them, what do you think? How to reach the consumer? What's the best way to get his attention? And these are just 4 answers I got. People they are talking with, they want to know how good oil tastes. Pleasure, we heard this in presentation before, might be more important than health issues. Consumers need to experience the oil, so they need to taste, to smell, to talk with others about that. And once a person has understood all this, he can become a loyal consumer of olive oil. So this leads us to the final question, how consumption can be improved. Some are very common demands. Shoppers generally wish for more structure, orientation, and inspiration, which means they want to have a shelf that gives them already some indication, not just a big variety of different brands and products where they cannot see what's behind that. Then, that's my personal opinion, olive oil should be more positioned like a flavor or like a flavor enhancer and as an effect for healthy lifestyle than just another supplement of oils and fats. If you remember the first slide, we have in Germany 26 kilo of oil and fat consumption per capita. 0.8 is olive oil. So there's a huge volume that can be gained by the olive oil producers. Then another message, emotional messages are stronger than pure fact-telling. Mistrust, Mr. Tada said, is crucial from the consumer. They don't know what's behind the olive oil industry. And what I think the last point, to join forces, is also very important. For the olive oil producers, I think they shouldn't work on their own. They shouldn't be alone in their message to the consumer. They should go together with other sectors of the same country or even within Europe. There are some programs made by the European community to join these activities and to have much more money for all the activities and reaching more people because the product range is just broader. So that's another example how olive oil could reach the consumer. Because in many cases, as we have heard, the consumers are at home in the lockdown, don't know what to eat, have no experience maybe in preparing a meal. These kind of cooking boxes that are provided by many providers now can be a smart solution from my point of view to include olive oil in dishes and recipes where people maybe haven't thought about that. And then, many of you may know Marco Pierre White. I came across him again because I was looking just in internet. What do people find when they look for olive oil in media like YouTube, for example? What results will they get? And this is by far the result with the most views and the most comments. 11.4 million views and more than 20,000 people commented on this video. And the message is very simple. A tiny bit of olive oil makes everything better. Let's see if the video works.
The lentil soup's now been cooking 15, 20 minutes. So we just finish it off with a bit of thyme and a tiny bit of olive oil, which is very Italian to have with lentil soup. Tiny bit of olive oil. Tiny bit of olive oil. I put a tiny bit of oil in pan, which I'm going to rub out with my cloth. This will assist me in cooking the sardines without the skin sticking. Little olive oil. Because once you put all the meatballs in, there's a tremendous loss of heat in the pan. And what you don't want to do is boil them. Now, splash of olive oil. So the 11th minute should be being drained and back into the sauce. Bit of olive oil. Generous amount of olive oil. And the cabbage. A little bit more olive oil. Finish off with olive oil. It just gives it that Mediterranean. It's like a minestrone.
Okay, thank you very much.
I enjoyed that very much. There is actually, in the US, I shared, is this too loud? Seems loud. Gordon Ramsay from the Hell's Kitchen has a very similar video, and it's hysterical. But what we're dealing with often is the conception that you cannot cook with olive oil. And so that's why these things from chefs who are well recognized and respected can have such a big impact. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you to the Rosa for the introduction, to the University of High-End and to Yale University for organizing this great presentation of symposia. For 2 days we've listened to how great olive oil is in terms of our health and the health of our planet, and I think it's appropriate now as things wind down that we start to talk about the consumer, because at the end of the day, olive oil is a business, and it depends on getting the consumer to buy and to buy more. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the United States, and yes, Rosa shared some questions she wanted to address. What I'm going to do is basically show you a few slides about the US market, trying to get an attempt to figure out who are the consumers we want to target in the US, and what will motivate them to buy. And what I draw upon is consumer research that we just finished. The pandemic provided us with a great experiment, basically. Because what you'll see is we had a big growth in new users in the United States. And like Germany, like Denmark, the United States is not a traditional olive oil country. While we are a big consumer of olive oil, it's concentrated in a relatively small part of the United States. There are roughly 60 million households in the United States that last year did not buy any olive oil. So the research that we did, however, during the pandemic, we had a lot of new users. We wanted to find out who those new users were and try to find out what motivated them. So we'll look at the new users. Okay, first a little background. So the United States, in terms of olive oil consumption, and this is data from the IOC. This is the EU. Here is the US and Canada. So the US and Canada are, North America is essentially a very important market of consumption. We are a producing nation. We produce excellent olive oils. We just don't produce a whole lot. So the production in the US accounts for approximately 4 to 5% of consumption. So it's very small. I'll try to go quickly here, give you a little snapshot of the cooking oil market in the United States. So it's roughly a billion liters of cooking oil are sold each year. Olive oil represents 16%. 75% is accounted for by vegetable oil, canola oil, and corn oil. The three seed oils that dominate the market. Within the olive oil market in the United States, you could see it's extra virgin dominant, 71%, and then another 30% roughly is divided between pure, or what we call regular olive oil, and light tasting olive oil. We'll look at this later, but last year, the latest data, 52 weeks from last July, is still showing a 6% increase in the category. But I want to dig a little deeper into that, into the trends of sales in the United States. So this is data showing the three categories: extra virgin, pure, and light, and the years 17, 18, 19, 20, and then the last 52 weeks. So you can see obviously these crazy numbers. This is percentage change in dollars. So extra virgin during the pandemic, 2020, we had 32% increase in sales, 20% increase of pure olive oil, and almost 33% increase in the light grade. When you look at the years prior to the pandemic, extra virgin was the only market growing. The others were slipping behind, and I mean, ultimately, that's to be the evolution that we expect consumers to graduate to extra virgin. You know, as I think, was it Rolf, was it your slides that said that I like to say, once you're an extra virgineer, you're always an extra virgineer. So the key is getting the consumer into that extra virgin category. But the encouraging thing, the encouraging thing for me, even after the pandemic, we're still seeing growth in the extra virgin category. Both the pure and the light grades have retreated somewhat, but they're still way ahead of where they were in 2019. So this slide shows the household penetration, the number of households that report that they purchased olive oil in the prior year. Household penetration had been stagnant. 2014, this doesn't go back far enough, but it had been stagnant since pretty much 2010. You can see 2014 and 2019 were the same. All of a sudden, in 2020, we had this big increase, and this is where the new users came in. So when we did this consumer research, we looked at a lot of things, but one of the things we wanted to know is who are these new users, what can we learn about them that maybe can teach us how to approach potential users in that. So, you know, if we're looking at 43% of households using olive oil, there's another 60% that's not, and that's where we need to go for. So what we learned about the new users was interesting. The new users that came into the category tended to be younger, they tended to be parents, non-white, and city dwellers, urbanites. Obviously, you can, you know, fit into more than one of these categories, but at the top we see, and when you look at this, it seems male, right? So strong percentage are reporting that that the new users are male. Dads, men, 18 to 34, married parents, and then various other categories. This was a slide I found really encouraging and interesting. A third of the new users first purchased, and this is newer users, it's not just the last 2 years, we expanded this for 5 years. We said, of the newer users, we asked them, what type of oil did you start with? What brought you into the category? And a third of them said it was either the light or the regular olive oil. But what was encouraging, and something we expected, but it's the first time we've had data on this, it shows that a third of those who came in with one of the refined products had graduated to extra virgin by the time this survey was done. As I mentioned, other than looking at the new users, we also examined 15 different messaging, you know, in terms of the communication messages that could help grow consumption. We looked at, you could see, you know, we broke down health to brain health, heart health, think we had chronic diseases. So we really tried to get granular to see what messages would people react to most. And so we shared messages. I'm not showing the full message that we developed. We developed these messages using a focus group, so they were really, I think they were really strong. We showed these consumers in the survey the messages, and then we asked them if it would make them more interested or much more interested in buying more olive oil, and the results were pretty astounding. So, in total of interested, we're in the 70s, 70%, high 70s on most of these messages, and much more interested are, almost half. Up at the top here, it's almost half of the consumers are saying if I knew this message, I would be much more interested in buying olive oil. When we break down with that last slide, again, this is the entire universe of survey respondents, but I had the researchers go in and break out the new users to find out which messages resonate most strongly with the new users. So for them, the number one issue is olive oil process, and what that message was about was that olive oil has been extracted basically the same way for millennia, and that no chemical solvents are used in the extraction. So here, this ties in with the authenticity idea and the importance of authenticity. So new users show that that's the number one issue in their minds that would want them to, at this point, buy more olive oil. Cooking, as I mentioned before, with regard to this myth that you can't cook with olive oil. Hearing and our message, which talked about how versatile olive oil is and that you can actually cook with it and use it however you want, also resonated very strongly as number two. Cognitive health. Yeah, most of the consumers were very, very aware of heart health, but heart health is not a message that we in the olive oil industry can own. What we really need to focus on are those messages that we can own, and brain health, if the research continues to develop, may be one of those. So that's a good sign. And costs. So this is the value calculation. We did a message that basically said, okay, if you want to make a cake, because we asked the focus group, what do you use cooking oil for? And they said cake. Okay, so we got a recipe for carrot cake, and we compared the cost of making the carrot cake with canola oil, or I forget if it was canola, a seed oil, a low-price seed oil, and a good quality extra virgin that was maybe $20 a liter, and did the calculation, and it worked out to a cost of an only additional 10 cents a slice for you to feed your family a carrot cake, 10 cents more, and that resonated very well with this group. Non-GMO was another, so this is the planetary health issue, and heart health was also there. So overall, these, at the beginning of the survey, I thought this was an interesting slide to share. It's not specifically about the new users. We asked, you see here, these are a whole series of attributes about olive oil. We asked this about other oils as well, but this is the olive oil slide. We asked these questions at the beginning. And this is the percentage of people who said that this matches what olive oil, these are the attributes of olive oil. So you can see the highest one is high quality, can be used to cook in many different recipes. After we showed them all these messages. As I said, there were 15 different messages, and once we were finished with the messages, we asked them the same question again, and this shows the difference in how they viewed the attributes of olive oil. Once they digested the messaging, the education that we were able to give this group helps prevent diseases. 18%, 16% is good for you. These are really strong numbers. The survey company was kind of blown away by these answers. What I particularly like were two things here. Provides good value for the price. So we had a jump of 8%. Once they read the messages, they appreciated the value of olive oil that much more. And this one, so it's expensive to buy. Fewer people, 4% less of them at this point, are saying that it's expensive. So we convinced some people that there is a value here. That's it. So I didn't specifically address the questions, but I don't know if you want to talk about them now. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, everybody. I think we had a lot of interesting topics coming today. First with the fantastic presentation that we had before. It says consumer focus, and now we have all the perspective coming from the country. And one of the things that we were having on the topics to discuss was first if the pandemic and the corona was really a door, it was an opportunity to build and expand the category in worldwide. Health, it's something that the consumer is really taking care. It's something important to claim. And if so, how many restrictions on the law side we got, not only in Europe but around the world? We are just with no options to say almost anything. So it's very difficult if we cannot use our own labels to communicate value added for the health standpoint. This is another topic. And also, we need to understand what does the consumer need from us to spend demand, to expand the occasion of consumption, to build these bridges between us, consumer, us, extra virgin olive oil, and the future. We're talking about people like in Japan, 60 years old. Even me, I'm not so old, so imagine our target, it's really, really, really going so far away from us. And we have to build a bridge with the youth, with the new generations. So, for instance, Joel, have you noticed, we have seen the data from the United States from the pandemic, but this is something which we hopefully is going to be something not for the rest of our lives. But you think it's going to be something before and after?
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing in the data shows that there was this large increase, but I think we've created the next plateau, and we're going to now grow from there because the numbers have returned to normal growth. We're seeing a 6% growth this year, so we did not see, I forget which of the countries we saw showed a decline. Mm-hmm. We didn't have that. We have more growth. So I'm very encouraged that this awareness of health and people taking agency to take care of themselves is going to benefit the industry very, very much.
What about Germany?
Well, as you might have seen on the second slide, the increase was very steep from 2019 to 2020 in this 13 million liters. And then it will go down. But you have to keep in mind this is just the consumption in households. It's the total consumption in the country. So you have to keep in mind that it's still some big amount going into the restaurants and gastronomy. But this is oil that the consumer doesn't see, doesn't recognize as olive oil. So the consumption in the household is, for me, the number that counts. And I think once you are in the kitchen of the people, it's the best way to communicate and to do some kind of bondage with the consumer, to bring the message of olive oil closer to him. Because during the pandemic, he has not only more time to cook, he has also more time to think about the products he's using. So the consumption of the organic olive oil was increasing even more than the conventional one. And this shows that health is of issue because organic is more or less equal to health, according to studies.
Now that you're talking about health, I'm going to put a question which is going to be hot for everybody, especially for Europeans. What about Nutri-Score? The red, the orange, the green. Well, we have only 10 minutes now. The last question, we are going to put the micro to everybody. We're finishing at 6 and it's 10 to 6. This is going to help. This is going to be something to clarify. It's going to be a positive. It's true, it's a lie.
Well, the Nutri-Score is a good idea from the beginning, to give the consumer some kind of indication what is healthy, what is unhealthy. But that's a very simple message. Just having different colors and different numbers from 1 to 5, saying this is good and this is bad and this is in between. Olive oil now, with a bit of struggling, got a D. Before it was an E. But this is not good for the olive oil industry, because the consumer sees this not very dark but still red color and saying, well, maybe it's not healthy for me, because the Nutri-Score says like that. And this doesn't take into account the usage of the product. You don't drink 1 liter at once. No. So,
No.
and
You
that's you have to communicate it as a flavor, not just as any fat or oil.
How you see us from the United States, from the Atlantic?
We think you're crazy. We think this is a crazy idea from the olive oil industry. As an overall regulation and policy, I see how it makes sense. You want to educate consumers in the simplest way possible. But the problem is, and this is a problem we deal with all the time, when you look at olive oil as compared to all foods, that's one thing. But our industry is cooking oils, and that's where, if we're going to be rated at health, it needs to be compared to other cooking oils. And even within the olive oil category, there's extra virgin, but there's also the regular and light olive oil. So those are healthy, but they're not as healthy as extra virgin. So there should be those types of grades. It makes no sense to lump olive oil together and give it a grade compared to an apple or a dish of pasta. Makes no sense.
Well, I think that now we got the opportunity to have questions for our guests at the stage. Vamos a tener oportunidad para hacer ahora las preguntas que en los próximos 10 minutos, porque hemos empezado más tarde, cuidado. Y nada.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. Well, I have realized that if we pay attention to the presentation in Germany and in Japan, we have seen that all people, or the people of ages 56, 60 is the most consumers. But in the United States, I realized that mainly men, I don't know the difference between male and females, I don't know why, but is higher in the young people. And my question is, Joseph, what do you think you are doing differently to connect to the young people than other markets?
Yeah, I want to make sure, I'm not sure the feedback is, if it's me or what, but I want to make sure you understood the question. So what we looked at were the new users who were coming in, and those were young and men. When you look at the distribution when we looked at who are the frequent users of olive oil, who buy frequently, you're going to see more older people. Okay, so I think there's some parallels. So we're not comparing the same types of numbers here. And as for what we're doing to bring those new users into the category, I have no idea. I think, I'm not sure that we're doing, we have this was one of the questions that Rosa suggested that we try to answer is there sufficient budget to do what we need to do to communicate to the new users, for instance, to the young people, and we don't have that. We're trying in the US to create an interprofessional type organization where we will collect assessments on all imported product and then be able to educate. So we have work to do, but we don't have the money to do it.
Rosa, the comment was, I wasn't telling you we're running out of time. I said, if we're going to talk about Nutri-Score, we need hours and hours and hours. That's what I meant. So I won't even ask that question. But to Joe, I think, and we talked about before, it would be interesting to see the age groups of your survey. Because definitely during the pandemic, a 14-year-old, an 18-year-old, 25-year-old react differently to what they've been through. So it'll be interesting to see, because as you know, one of the things we're talking with Rafi and his team at Yale is how do we go back to younger ages in our vicinity? Yeah. We have the college kids sort of captive, but how do we go before that and create that value that was brought up before, and you asked the question, how to create value for the younger.
Yeah, I think that is an important thing to do. We really, this research was just completed, and so there's a lot of ways we can slice and dice it. But I will say, I think during the pandemic, to Mr. Grunert's presentation, and I asked the question, how do we get consumers to discover the value? And I think the pandemic did that because, as Ralph said, they're home cooking, and they're enjoying cooking with olive oil. And so I think that experience, the pandemic created, a consumer value proposition.
Thanks to all the speakers for a great international perspective. But one thing that I missed from Mr. Tada's presentation, and apologies if we missed it in the transmission, was a discussion of how the Japanese feel about health and olive oil. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, first of all, I need to just mention about the consumption ratio about the cooking oil in Japan. The olive oil market is really big growth for these years, but still the consumption ratio is only 2 or 3%. The big majority is canola in Japan and also the soy oil. So there is still the very small people knowing about the health promotion effect, and also the pleasure to using the nice flavors and the aromas and taste of the extra virgin olive oil. That kind of a consumer is very, very limited at this moment. So the other panelists and the people that said about the education is quite much important. And we need to just make a more education to the Japanese consumers about the health promotion effect of the olive oil. That is really important, I believe, in Japan still.
I have two-part questions. The first part has to do with the data, as I was showed before. For example, Joe, you showed 1 billion liters of oil in the United States. 52% of the consumers before pandemic, they consumed their meals away from home. Okay, and out of that 52%, 75 to 80% of them are in QSRs, in fast food restaurants. And in the fast food restaurants, the number one item that is sold is French fries. And so you're not going to have olive oil in those deep fryers. And so if you take, for example, that number away from your data and says that's not the business that you're going to go after.
Okay.
Then
again, let me just explain, Rafi, because that was retail data. Those are retail sales figures.
So that's actually grocery stores.
That's grocery people buy and consume at home.
So on that note, then, pre-COVID, the grocery accounted for 49% of our total sales in the United States. Now, here's the thing, though. Post-COVID, that whole number got disrupted.
Yeah.
So the data that's actually the increase that shows post-COVID and the new consumers that they had to actually cook for themselves at home, what is it that is done to keep those people keep cooking rather than going back to the food service, or at least preserving a large portion of them? Is it through health and wellness of the olive oil or promoting culture of the cooking?
I'm not sure I can answer that question, but you raise good points. I do think, though, that the consumers, they really experience the Mediterranean lifestyle by cooking at home with others rather than, maybe taking a TV dinner out of the freezer or something. So this was an important moment to grow the value of cooking with good ingredients. Is that the answer? I'm not sure. I think the health obviously is what drove them. Awareness of health is what drove them to use more olive oil, and I'm hoping, and the initial indications are that it's going to continue. That they're going to continue to cook more at home, not as much as we would like, but more, and that they will choose olive oil.
There's somebody there? Hay una persona allí en el fondo. We got time for 2-3 more questions, I think.
Hi there. sorry, loud. Thanks so much, really fantastic, fascinating insights from your presentations. I just had one question. I'm curious about online sales of olive oil, particularly specialty olive oils or, monovarietals, things like this, and how that might have been affected by the pandemic.
I personally don't have numbers on the online sales of olive oil. Generally, for food, it used to be quite low in Germany for a long time, but during COVID, this has increased a lot. So at least 15 to 20% more sales is done via online of food products, of all kinds of food products. As a general number, more products, of course, that can be sold via online, like wine, like olive oil, less fresh produce, of course, but this trend will keep on growing. Many marketing specialists say that once the people have realized how easy it is to buy something online, they will keep on with that habit. They don't have to go to the shop for every and just be a logistic.
From a brand standpoint, as a producer, we have seen such a huge, change on the online market that we don't have time to run at the same speed. It has been a big change, which is good on one side, but on the other side, it's really spoiling prices. They're bringing down prices, and there's a fight of prices, which sometimes is not good for the brand. So everything is not good news on the online side. Mm-hmm. Anyway, more
questions? I think
questions?
to point out one thing in Japanese market. Of course, the online market is big growth for these 2 years, and also the other sector have the big growth, which is the C-store. It's the so-called convenience store. The department stores and some supermarkets should close under the pandemic, but C-store still keep open during the pandemic period. So the C-store olive oil sales is quite much in the big growth. That's very interesting.
Thank you very much. My question is around how the panel feel that health is best communicated. Given, Rosa, your comment that there's a limit to what you can put on the bottle, and given Mr. Tada's comment that the Japanese, for example, don't really trust what's put on the bottle, how does the industry get that communication of health out there when so much research is being done in fantastic universities like this, but there is a limit in how that message is getting out? How does the industry do that? Media.
I mean, we got these, from my perspective, what the limited situation we got to communicate on the labeling, and we are producers. The more we say, the less they are going to believe us. So we need to have this communication through media, through trendsetters, people that those figures that people are trusting. More than scientific, people that very close and a very easy language, but we need to work, from my point of view, with media. I mean, with all these people that are going to build the bridge from us to consumer. I don't know if you think like me.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rosa. In the United States, we're very fortunate in that we have, a survey was done by the New York Times a few years ago, asking which foods consumers considered healthy. 88% of American consumers consider olive oil healthy, and that's higher than kale. So we've got a very good baseline, and among nutritionists, it's like 96%. So the idea that olive oil is healthy is already established, but now, as our recent research showed, we need to get into the details, because they don't really understand. They know it's healthy, they don't quite understand why, and it's not easy to explain.
On the other side, before Ralph, 1 second, for me it's also very dangerous, because if you need help, you can take a pill. So we cannot go away from the tasty health. You do things with the extra virgin olive oil. You cook, you have a nice time, you share with people, you are creative, you give value added. At the end of the day, we're eating health. So we cannot really put all our, in Spanish, the eggs in the same nest, because we are not competing with pharmacy or medical kind of value added. So we have to be very careful on balancing taste, health, nature, history, a lot of emotional and gastronomic and healthy values. It's more than health in its original olive oil. I don't know, Ralph, if sorry I interrupt you.
No. Health is of course very important for the consumer, but just from the head. I mean, if you look like other experiences, if you want to enjoy the food, health is not the first issue looking for. It's the pleasure, it's the taste, it's the celebration with others. And the combination, I think, is the one that we should look for at the end. Bringing all these aspects together and make a message out of that. Not just focusing on health or focusing on pleasure, but having a good mixture of all.
We got
now, I'd like to just mention one thing about what kind of information put on the label is the most important. And for instance, if I have the tuna sashimi in front of myself, and the consumers would like to put some olive oil on the tuna sashimi, but they never knows about just take a looking about the bottle, but it is spicy or the mild or sweet, or we never knows about just take a look about the bottle. So what kind of taste and what kind of flavor the olive oil has is also quite much the important information to put on the label. That kind of thing is quite much helpful for the consumers, I believe.
I don't know if we got a last question. Anybody wants to? Okay, we've got two more. ¿Quién tiene? Aquí. Pero cortitas, no van a cortar. No. El señorito primero. Gracias.
I really did like the chef. I don't really want to bust his balls, sorry to say. But I think we still have a lot to work on with chefs. They still have a very important role. They are the way we are going to get to our consumer in a lot of sense. And that chef, I'm sorry, as a taster, I'm just looking at him. He has the olive oil right by he's oxidizing the oil right by the cooking station. He's not talking about what variety he's using, how he's pairing it. He's not, it's in a bottle that's, it's clear, it's right by the heat. I think although I chapeau, my hat to him, because he is, we take steps forward and he's taking a step forward, but we need to help him more to communicate how to store olive oil, how to use olive oil. And, if you're putting olive oil on your sashimi, for example, you can have a really good experience or a really bad experience depending on what type of oil you're putting on. If you put a piqual that's very bitter on sashimi, I think that it wouldn't be a very good pairing as if you would put maybe an Alberquina on that same tuna. I think we still have a lot to do with chefs, and they are key, and we really need to help them in a positive way. Anyway, it's not really a question, it's just a comment.
I would definitely put some piqual in my sashimi, by the way. Yeah, but anyhow. Well, first, thank you for the magnificent debate and table dynamic, and many, many thoughts come through my mind. I'm going to try to be short and quick, no promise. Magnificent momentum. This is my first thought. Japan, US, Germany, well, we see from the IOC all markets growing. It is the momentum. This is very important to analyze what is happening, and as Joe says, is this the platform for this golden era for the olive oil? Can we make it, and how to make it? And this is appropriate debate. I get from Ralph, pleasure comes before health. And it's true for many decisions. So that's where I think cooking, chefs, lifestyle, this is maybe the key to grow. And this is my question for the others, if they share what is the role of the chefs and this kind of, if you have to prioritize your promotion action, what would you put first? That is one of the questions. And the other question is, okay, we've seen consumption is growing because people is cooking at home. Then the question is, what happens when people go to the restaurants? What is the industry thinking about that? Because these people was eating before, somewhere else. So what's happening in the restaurants? Is the industry thinking about how can we encourage the use of olive oil in the restaurants? Yeah. And last, you mentioned the Nutri-Score for another day, but it's an opportunity to get the recognition on health for olive oil easy and direct with an intense green grade and in front label. That's it.
Thank you. We got only 1 minute each. I'm sorry, but they are looking at my eyes. So 1 minute each. Joy?
Okay, so trying to think of your first question, Jaime. So the question of pleasure, which I would focus on first. Yeah, it's tough. My job, I can't really focus on one thing, and so both the messaging of flavor, which I agree is very important, we're trying to address by creating a section for specialty olive oils within the North American Olive Oil Association that we want to use to help us tell the story of olive oil. And here we're focusing on high quality flavors. We also just created a standing food service committee because food service is where the most work needs to be done, where there's tremendous opportunity, but education and improvement and developing new strategies to promote olive oil in restaurants is needed, and we have not been focusing on that. The last question in terms of giving it the grade, I didn't quite...
When you think about promoting olive oil, what do you put first? Chefs, cooking, lifestyle, or your first priority when you think about promoting consumption in the U.S.?
I mean, I think health still is still number one because we've got more than half of the country that doesn't buy olive oil, and we know that health is the number one driver of sales. So,
Ralph, what do you think?
I just shortly like to answer the question in a different way because the most important thing to gain the attention of the consumer and to win him as a loyal consumer of olive oil is to give him a good quality. Because this is not happening at the moment in too many cases from my point of view. If the average consumer would have been here in Jaén tasting a Primer Día de Cosecha, he would be amazed by the quality because he didn't have this experience up to now. These fresh and green and herbaceous flavors he can find in the oil, he hasn't found in any bottle in his whole life, most of them I would say more than 99%. So just make him experience a good olive oil, and you will have him as a consumer for his lifetime.
Tadasan?
Yes, I try to keep my best efforts to, educate the people about the quality, but now I realize about the most important things. It's not just simply about the quality. We need to just more in deep about the taste itself or flavor itself. So at least as I mentioned before, that this olive oil is spicy, bitter, or not so spicy or bitter or mild or fruity or something like that. That kind of the flavor or taste information is the most keen to educate the people. If there's a bad or rancid or oxidized olive oil, we can never say about it's spicy or bitter or something like that. If I can say only that this is a spicy, very, the green, fruity, that kind of the information is quite enough to tell about the quality. So Now the next step, the next step of the quality is to just mention about or the communicate about that kind of the flavor and taste more in detail.
So I think we arrived to the end of this roundtable. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you